here's what I love about getting things done is that if I could just be super reductive about this, I think one thing that makes getting things done so great is it understands that you have nouns and verbs that work together. It's just that in getting things done, a noun is a project, and
right. Everything is a project.
Well, it can be.
We talked about this in one of our...
Yeah. There are onesies and singletons out there, but they're usually part of some kind of an ongoing thing. Like I hate to call it GTD unless people want to talk about it. It drives some people crazy, but I mean, it really does work, and it is super effective. And if you ever need to fall back on something that can get your life wired right, it's certainly not a bad place to go. But I think one of the super powerful things from day to day is to go, okay, well, I have this thing that needs to happen. Well, what's the project here? That's a great start. And in GTD anyway, the way you would define a project, well, first of all, a project is anything that has 2 or more action steps in order to be completed. Well, what is it that needs to be completed? And I think it's actually not a bad idea to phrase that noun-like outcome in the form of some kind of verb that gets you to the noun, right? So if I go, what's the name of my project? Retirement, bridge, happiness, excellence. Okay, well, if your project is excellence, well, why don't we start, by putting that in a slightly more doable way?
Okay.
You could even say your project, I'm going to say, I don't know if David would agree with this, but I would say, here's a great project. Get way better at Rails by Easter. And you could even get more specific with that, but that's enough to get started. Now, the really neat part of that is, if you just have that on a piece of paper and look at it over and over, you're gonna go batty if you're not actually doing anything about it. So what's nice then is once you've got a project, you figure out what the verbs are. In the parlance of GTD, you put these into what are called contexts, which are opportunities or limitations, things like phone calls, writing, and so on and so on. But the point is, you say, okay, I have this I can envision this idea in my head of what this noun-like outcome will look like, and now I can kind of go backwards from that to figure out, not so differently from project management, but now I need to figure out what verbs need to happen to do that. And one of the best things that David Allen says that I still just can't get around how true and smart this is that everything you put on the list of your to-dos, your tasks, or your action list, or whatever the heck you want to call it, you should be able to phrase it as a physical activity. And like the thing I said last week or whenever about having a theme statement that's a transitive sentence, it changes everything when you start phrasing what you do as a physical thing, a verb. Mm. And so what are some examples of this? Well, I mean, think about the typical to-do list. Like the worst to-do list is things like, mixing apples and oranges and having things like buy milk, retirement, get kid into college, have boil lanced. I mean, that's a terrible mix of nouns and verbs that still need some work to turn it into something doable. And this is where the physical part comes in. Because even if you get good enough to know what your project outcome is, let's say it's something as specific as, get the 5x5 store up. Like, it's a pretty specific thing. You'll know when that's done, right? But what are the nouns that get you there? So, if you say implement new code module, well, okay, what will that look like when you're implementing it? Well, in like David Allen would say, well, what are you when you're implementing, what are you physically doing? Is it stupid to say open up TextMate and make sure I've got all my code, or do I need to check it out from Git? Like, wow, that's not a bad question. The classic example, let's say your noun is your project is something like a Christmas party. Okay, well, Christmas party has a lot of steps to it. Like, you need to work that backwards. I'm just totally stealing this from David Allen. But, well, okay, so invite friends. Okay, which friends are you going to invite? Oh, write list of friends I might want to invite. Okay, now how are you going to contact them? Oh, I guess I need their phone numbers or their email addresses. Okay, so now find John's email address. Like, that's a super specific thing to do. Call Joan to find out her home address. Do you follow? Like, all of those things, the resistance that people have to getting that specific, to getting that granular about the verbs, is because they went to college, right? Maybe they're Dr. Benjamin or Bachelor Mann. Like, you're really smart. Well, if you're really smart, then why aren't those projects moving along better? It's because you haven't unpacked the dependencies inside of there. Just calling something a noun and acting like it's going to get done is about the looniest thing in the world. It really helps to go in and turn those things into verbs. So I hope that's not too practical. But I found that to be really true. There's some other really, really good examples. I mean, verbs like read and write. Google has a verb. I think these are really good verbs. Even something that seems like a good verb, like review. Review. Like, what does it look like when you're reviewing? Well, I don't know. I guess I go find this thing and read it. Okay, well, that's actually two different tasks. Because in your head, you're not getting that thing done. You're not seeing movement on the review thing because you didn't unpack that. You want to eventually write an email to somebody about it, but you can't write that email until you have read it, and you can't read it until you find it. So now, like, you feel like an idiot because you have to sit down and have a task list with 3 items that says find report, read report, write email. But until you do that, that review thing is just going to be hanging over your head like some busted ass pinata. It drives you crazy.